Hi friends, and welcome to Folklore Diaries. Here, we share real-life horror stories and chilling legends from around the world. Some of them happen to our listeners, others have been passed down for years. So get comfortable but stay alert, because the next story might just keep you awake tonight. And if you like true horror stories, consider subscribing. Okay, let's begin. The mountains of rural Japan are beautiful, but they can also feel like another world. The air is colder, the trees stand taller, and when the wind moves through the leaves, it carries voices that do not always sound human. In a small town nestled at the foot of these mountains, there is a tunnel that no one likes to enter. The locals call it Kurakami Tunnel, the Tunnel of Black Hair. The tunnel was built many decades ago, during a time when the town was thriving. It connected the village to the nearest city, cutting through the heart of the mountain. For years, people walked and cycled through it every day. But then, strange things began to happen. Food carried inside the tunnel would spoil, lanterns and lights would flicker without reason, and most terrifying of all, some travelers claimed they heard a woman's voice in the darkness. A voice begging softly, "Can you spare me a bite?" Soon accidents followed. A cart overturned. A man collapsed inside and was found dead with a look of terror frozen on his face. And then, the final blow. A young girl went missing after entering the tunnel on her way home from school. Her body was never found. From that day, Kurakami Tunnel was abandoned. A new road was built around the mountain, and the tunnel was sealed at both ends. Yet, people whispered that on quiet nights, if you stood near the entrance, you could still hear a faint woman's voice drifting out of the stone. Decades later, the tunnel remained untouched, hidden behind rusted gates. Grass grew tall around the entrance, and the mountain seemed eager to swallow it whole. The townspeople avoided it. Even children, curious as they were, would never play too close. The elders told them stories of the hungry spirit, a woman who starved inside the tunnel during a snowstorm long ago, her soul trapped forever in darkness. But the younger generation did not always believe. They had grown up hearing the tales, but in their minds, it was nothing more than superstition. And so, on a summer evening, 3 college students returned to their hometown for a short vacation. Riku, tall and adventurous, Aya, quiet but curious, and Daichi, who loved to tease and laugh even in the darkest places. They had been friends since childhood, and on their second night back in town, they sat outside a small ramen shop near the station. The summer festival was still a week away, so the streets were calm, lit only by yellow lanterns swaying in the warm breeze. After finishing their bowls of ramen, Daichi leaned back with a grin. "Hey," he said, his voice playful. "Do you guys still remember the old tunnel?" Aya frowned. "You mean Kurakami Tunnel? Don't even joke about that. My grandmother still prays when she talks about it." Rika smirked. "Come on, Aya. That's just an old ghost story. Nobody's been in there for decades. It's probably just damp and full of bats. Or full of spirits," Aya whispered, lowering her eyes. Daichi chuckled. "I heard if you carry food inside, you'll lose it before you come out. Rotten, moldy, or completely gone. What if we test it?" Aya shook her head firmly. "Don't. That's dangerous." But the seed had been planted. The boys exchanged glances, both grinning. Riku had always been the type to chase adventure, and Daichi loved to push him further. Aya, despite her fear, often followed to keep them safe. Later that night, as the cicadas screamed in the humid air, the 3 friends walked toward the edge of town. The road was quiet, lined with rice fields that shimmered in the moonlight. Their laughter echoed as they carried flashlights and a small bag of snacks, potato chips, rice balls, and a bottle of tea. Aya held the bag tightly. "This isn't funny. If anyone sees us..." "No one's going to see us," Rika said confidently. "The tunnel's been sealed for years. We'll just look, take a few photos, maybe peek inside if the gate's loose, and then leave." When they reached the mountain's edge, the tunnel appeared out of the darkness like a mouth cut into stone. The iron gate was still there, though rusted and bent at the bottom. Weeds crawled over the stone walls. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the buzzing of insects. Aya froze. "It looks alive." Rika shone his flashlight through the bars. The tunnel stretched into blackness, the concrete walls stained with watermarks. The beam of light barely reached a few meters before dissolving into the void. Daichi whistled. Creepy. But hey, look, the bottom's broken. We can crawl through. Aya's stomach tightened. No, absolutely not. But Riku was already crouching down, testing the gap. It's big enough. Come on, Aya. Don't you want to know the truth? We'll be quick. Her heart pounded. Every story she had ever heard about this tunnel came rushing back. The starving woman, the missing girl, the whispers in the dark. Yet, the boys were already sliding inside. With a shaky breath, she followed. The air inside was damp and heavy. Their footsteps echoed against the walls, mixing with the distant drip of water. Aya gripped her flashlight tightly, sweeping the beam across the concrete. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling. Old graffiti faded on the walls. Daichi tore open the bag of chips and laughed. All right, hungry spirit, come and get it. His voice bounced around, distorted and eerie. Don't joke, Aya snapped. But even Rika chuckled. Relax. See? Nothing here. Just dust and mold. Still, as they walked deeper, Aya felt the temperature drop. The tunnel swallowed sound strangely. The further they went, the more muted the outside world became. It was as though the mountain itself was closing behind them. She tried to calm herself, but then it happened. A whisper. Soft. Fragile. Almost lost in the dripping water. Can you spare me a bite? Aya froze. The flashlight trembled in her hand. Did you hear that? Rika stopped, his grin fading. Hear what? The voice came again, clearer this time, from the darkness ahead. I'm so hungry. Can you spare me a bite? The three of them stood still, their breaths loud in the silence. The bag of snacks rustled in Daichi's hands, though he hadn't moved. His face had gone pale. Aya whispered, we need to leave. Now. But before they could turn back, the flashlight beams flickered, and then, just for a moment, they saw her. A thin figure crouched in the shadows, her long hair tangled, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her mouth opened wider than it should, and in a voice like a starving child, she whispered again, Please, just one bite. The air inside Kurakami Tunnel felt colder than the summer night outside. Aya clutched her flashlight with trembling hands, the beam shaking across the concrete walls. The voice echoed again, closer now, even though no footsteps approached. Can you spare me a bite? Rika's throat went dry. He had always been the brave one, the one who laughed at ghost stories. But the figure they had glimpsed was no trick of the light. She was real, or at least something real enough to make the air shift around them. Daichi swallowed hard, forcing a laugh that cracked at the edges. It's someone playing a prank, right? Some old woman, or... Aya cut him off sharply. No one lives here, Daichi. No one can live here. They all knew it was true. The tunnel had been sealed for decades. Yet the voice grew stronger, layered with hunger and desperation. Rika stepped forward cautiously, trying to keep his voice steady. Who's there? Silence. The dripping of water echoed in the distance. Aya's skin prickled, every nerve telling her to run, yet her legs refused to move. Then, from deeper inside the tunnel, a faint glow appeared. Not from their flashlights, but something pale and unnatural. And then they heard it again, louder, more desperate. Please. I'm starving. Just one bite. The glow drifted forward, and as their flashlights caught it, the figure revealed herself. She crawled on hands and knees across the wet ground, her movements jerky, unnatural. Her hair was long and matted, sticking to her hollow face. Her skin was stretched thin, almost gray, her cheeks sunken deep. Aya gasped and stumbled backward, her flashlight beam trembling wildly. Daichi dropped the chips to the ground, his hands frozen at his sides. Riku, though terrified, forced himself to stand his ground. Who are you? He demanded. The woman lifted her head slowly. Her eyes glimmered faintly in the light, but they were not the eyes of the living. They were the empty, endless eyes of someone who had died in suffering. She whispered again, her lips cracked and trembling. Just a bite, please. I'm so hungry. Her gaze shifted to the snacks spilled on the tunnel floor. And as she looked, the food began to change. The chips darkened, curling with mold. The rice balls shriveled as though days had passed in seconds. The bottle of tea turned cloudy, its seal swelling and popping with rot. Aya screamed. The woman's mouth opened wider, far wider than humanly possible. Her jaw cracked as she stretched it unnaturally, revealing blackened teeth and a throat that seemed to have no end. The sound of gnawing and chewing filled the tunnel, though she had eaten nothing yet. Aya grabbed Rika's arm, her voice breaking. "We need to leave now. Please." Rika turned, but when they looked back at the gate where they had entered, the darkness seemed to have thickened. The tunnel stretched longer than before, the faint square of moonlight far away, as if the mountain had grown around them. We didn't walk this far," Daichi whispered, his face pale. The spirit inched closer, dragging herself across the wet concrete. Her nails scraped against the ground, leaving long marks that glistened with water. Or was it something else? "Blood?" Aya cried out, "Stay away." But the woman only whispered, more desperately now. "I starved here, that I froze here. Please let me eat, just once more." For a moment, the tunnel itself seemed to change. Aya blinked, and suddenly she wasn't standing in concrete darkness, but looking into a memory. Snow. Heavy, white snow pouring through the tunnel's broken roof. A woman in ragged clothes huddled against the wall, clutching her stomach. She shivered violently, her lips blue, her face gaunt. She had been traveling, perhaps trying to reach the town, but had become trapped when the snow piled at both ends of the tunnel. Days passed. No one came. Her cries for help were swallowed by the mountain. She starved. Alone. Forgotten. And in her last moments she begged for food, not out of greed, but out of desperation. Aya blinked again, gasping as the vision faded. She looked at her friends. She died here. She was trapped and starved in this tunnel. That's why. But before she could finish, the spirit let out a wail. It was not loud. It was thin, broken, the sound of hunger that had no end. "Just one bite, please, point one bite." Daichi snapped out of his paralysis, grabbing Aya's hand. "We're leaving." Rika nodded, though fear shone in his eyes. They ran, the beam of their flashlights cutting wildly through the darkness. Behind them, the sound of scraping nails and whispering hunger grew louder. Aya's lungs burned as they sprinted. The square of light at the gate seemed to flicker, sometimes near, sometimes impossibly far. The tunnel twisted in ways it shouldn't, as though the mountain wanted to keep them inside. Then, something cold brushed against Aya's neck. She screamed, spinning her light back, and saw the woman's face inches from hers, mouth gaping open, the smell of rot washing over her. "No!" Aya cried, shoving Rika forward. "Run!" They pushed harder, their legs aching, until finally the gate came into view again. The gap they had crawled through was still there, though smaller, as though the mountain was closing its jaws. Daichi dove first, scraping his arm on the rusted bars. Rika followed, pulling Aya after him. The moment they hit the grass outside, the sound of whispers stopped. The night air returned, warm and full of cicadas. Aya collapsed, gasping for breath, her whole body trembling. Rika stared back at the tunnel, his face pale with disbelief. Daichi sat beside them, clutching his bleeding arm. For a long time, none of them spoke. The tunnel was silent again, as if nothing had happened. But they all knew the truth. The spirit was real, and she was still waiting inside. Aya whispered, her voice barely audible. "She's still hungry." The night outside the tunnel felt unreal. The air was warm again, the moon still hung above the rice fields, and the hum of cicadas filled the silence. But for Aya, Riku, and Daichi, nothing felt safe anymore. They had left the tunnel behind, yet the echo of that whisper still clung to their ears. "Can you spare me a bite?" Aya hugged her knees, rocking slightly as she tried to calm her trembling body. Her mind kept replaying the image of the woman's face, sunken eyes, gaping mouth, and the hunger that was not human. Riku wiped sweat from his forehead, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. We made it out. See? Just a story. That's all it was." But Aya turned to him sharply, her eyes filled with fear. "No, That was real. You saw her. You both saw her. And she touched me. Her voice cracked. I felt her breath on my neck. Daichi, clutching his scratched arm, muttered, "And the food. It rotted in front of us. How do you explain that?" Riku opened his mouth, but no answer came. Deep down, he knew there was no explanation. The stories were true. The friends agreed never to speak of it again. That night, they returned home separately, each carrying their own fear. Aya lit every lamp in her house and sat by the window until dawn. Daichi cleaned his wound, though the scrape burned more than it should. Rika lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of that whisper crawling through his mind. The next day, the three of them tried to act normal. They met again at the ramen shop, pretending to laugh and talk about ordinary things. But something was different. When the food arrived, steaming bowls of miso ramen, the smell hit Aya first. She gagged, covering her mouth. The noodles looked normal, but to her eyes, they shimmered with mold. Daichi stared at his boiled egg, watching it darken and collapse as if days of decay passed in seconds. His chopsticks clattered to the table. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Rika shook his head, but the broth in his bowl turned cloudy, bubbling with a sour stench. His stomach lurched. They looked at each other in silence, realization dawning. The spirit had followed them. Over the next days, things grew worse. Aya's family cooked rice, but when she opened her bowl, it was crawling with maggots. Daichi bought bread from the bakery, yet by the time he reached home, it was covered in green mold. Riku opened a can of soda, and it fizzed black, spilling like tar onto the floor. No matter where they went, no matter what food they touched, it spoiled in their hands. And at night, when they closed their eyes, they heard it, the same voice whispering near their beds. "I'm hungry. Just one bite." Aya began to lose weight. She could eat nothing. Every bite tasted rotten. Daichi grew pale, his eyes hollow from lack of sleep. Even Riku, who had tried to stay strong, now looked haunted. "This isn't just a haunting," Aya whispered one evening when they met again. "It's a curse. She won't let us eat because she never could. She died starving, and now she wants us to starve too." Daichi slammed his fist on the table, desperation in his voice. "Then what do we do? How do we get rid of her?" Aya shook her head, tears brimming. "I don't know. Maybe we have to feed her." That night, they returned to Kurakami Tunnel. This time, there was no laughter, no teasing. They carried food, fresh rice balls, fruit, and tea. Their flashlights shook as they crawled back through the rusted gate. The tunnel was silent, damp, waiting. Rika stepped forward, holding the rice balls in his trembling hands. His voice cracked as he spoke into the darkness. "We brought food. Please take it. Just leave us alone." For a long moment, there was nothing, just dripping water. Then the air grew colder. The whisper came again, right behind them. "Can you spare me a bite?" Aya screamed, spinning around with her light. The woman was there, closer than ever, her mouth stretched wide, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Rika dropped the rice balls onto the ground. "Here, take it." The spirit bent low, her hair dragging across the concrete. The food rotted instantly, but she shoved it into her gaping mouth, chewing with horrifying hunger. The sound was unbearable, wet, greedy, endless. Aya covered her ears. Daichi gagged. Rika forced himself not to look away. When the spirit finished, she lifted her head slowly. Her lips dripped black fluid. Her voice cracked, weaker now. "More." Aya's heart sank. "It's not enough," she whispered. The spirit's gaze locked onto them, her hunger endless. She stretched her arm forward, bony fingers reaching. Daichi stumbled back, his face pale with terror. "She wants us." Before Aya could scream, the spirit lunged. Her mouth opened impossibly wide, and she clamped her teeth around Daichi's shoulder. He cried out, his voice echoing through the tunnel as blood splattered onto the floor. Rika grabbed Aya, dragging her toward the gate. "Run!" But Daichi's screams followed them, cut short by a horrible gurgling sound. Aya looked back once, and wished she hadn't. The spirit was devouring him, her jaw stretching as his body shriveled in her grip. Rika shoved Aya through the gap, both of them crawling into the night. They collapsed in the grass, gasping for breath, their ears still filled with the sound of chewing. Behind them, the tunnel went silent once more. Days passed. The town searched for Daichi, but no trace of him was ever found. His parents believed he had run away. Aya and Rika said nothing. How could they explain the truth? But the curse did not end. Food still spoiled in their hands. The whispers still came at night. Aya grew weaker, her face pale and thin. Rika tried to stay strong, but even he was wasting away. One night, Aya sat by her window, too weak to stand. The whisper came again, soft against her ear. Just one more bite. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. And somewhere deep in the mountain, in the dark of Kurakami Tunnel, the hungry spirit waited. Always waiting. Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, not every shadow is empty, and not every voice in the dark is in your head. Good night, and stay safe.